And now Mwalimu or Teacher Kaligo Doto Jige from Queen of Peace Girls Secondary School in Tabora. How come they're asking this question? It's because the book, the interview, has been a set book in Tanzania secondary schools for close to 10 years. And therefore, that's why there is so much interest. And I, being the author of the book, I'm quite proud of this fact. And I'm here to answer a few of the questions that are being brought up by teachers and students.
Know. Everybody wants to know. I want to know. Everybody wants to know. I want to know. Everybody wants to know. Oh, I want to know. Everybody wants to know. Oh!
Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening. This is Patrick Ngugi, welcoming you to another episode of The Right Talk. Right Talk is a part of the Right Academy, which is my online school for writing, mainly fiction or short stories. And so this is the second episode of The Right Talk, which will be uploaded weekly on YouTube so that you can follow what's happening in the world of literature, writing, mainly my own works of writing, which includes novels and a bit of poetry. And again, this week, we are talking about one of my literature works, which is The Interview, a book that was published early in this millennium, the year 2002. That is when the book was published, but I actually wrote The Interview in the year 2000 when I entered it into a competition by Macmillan, which published the book then. The Interview was written specifically for the competition that was done by Macmillan London, which used to then publish the school books. And it was among the 5 shortlisted books among the 600 that were entered into the competition. It included The Interview and Unanswered Cries by somebody called Conte in Sierra Leone, and finally Conte won. But the 5 books, which include The Interview and Unanswered Cry, were published. And so in the last episode, I answered several questions from some schoolgirls in Kigoma, Tanzania, which was sent to me by their teacher, Mwalimu Reginald Bishoza. And today I continue with answering more questions, this time not from students, but a teacher of English literature. And so this week we continue answering more questions from that part of the continent, from Tanzania, from one of the teachers there, and his name is let me get it right. We have teacher Kaligo Doto Jige from Queen of Peace Girls Secondary School in Nzega District, Tabora region. And I may want to, for those who may not be aware, I may want to mention a bit why we are doing this book and why these questions are coming last week from Tanzania in a school in Kigoma. And now Mwalimu or Teacher Kaligo Doto Jige from Queen of Peace Girls Secondary School in Tabora. How come they're asking this question? It's because the book, The Interview, has been a set book in Tanzania secondary schools for close to 10 years. And therefore, that's why there is so much interest. And I, being the author of the book, I'm quite proud of this fact. And I'm here to answer a few of the questions that are being brought up by teachers and students. I may not be able to answer everything because as students and even as teachers, you might be required to do your own research, your own reading, so that you may be able to understand and follow and follow the book, and also understand how, so that you may also be able to answer the question when exam come in literature. So I may not be able to give you all the answers. And again, as the author, some of the things we write, it comes out of subconscious mind. We don't really look so much into the laws of the what do you call the themes. Of course, we do have a theme, but there are some of those styles and techniques. They just come out naturally. Sometimes we don't even realize, and so that by the time you end, you finish the book, it's only somebody when somebody can point out this, you did it this way, or you did it this way, you use this technique while creating this character, and so on and so forth. And again, as you may be aware, the book was published in the year 2002. That's quite some time ago. That is like 21 or so years ago. So as an author, actually, I've done quite a number of books after that. So as an author, I may not be able to remember everything in the book, because I have not gone back and read the book again so that I may remember or see what question you are answering. So in some areas, I may be a bit, rusty, but obviously, because I'm the author of that book, I do remember a lot of stuff. So briefly, the book, for those who may not have read the interview, the book is about a character, a Form 4 school leaver called Joe, who is at home. He does not have a job. He cannot go to high school because his certificate has been held at school because of unpaid school fees, which he has not been able to complete paying. And he cannot do the completion of the payment of the school fee because he lives with his brother, who is also not very well off. And therefore, these arrears have been pending for some time. And so he, in the book, starts when he has an opportunity to go and get a part-time job. And he's happy because when he gets this job, he's going to pay the school arrears, help his brother to pay school arrears, so that his certificate may be released, so that he may be able to join high school, or rather college, or even, higher education, or even get a better employment. So that's how the story starts. And he's going for the interview for that job, and that's where the title comes from. But on his way to the interview, he witnesses a road accident. An elderly woman who is a bit off her mind is almost knocked by a car, but thrown out of the road by the car, not really head-on impact. And so Joe gets late to the interview because he's helping this lady to be taken to hospital, and so on and so forth. So that by the time he gets to the interview, he's late for the interview. The interview does not happen, so he misses the opportunity to get the employment. But what happens, one thing leads to another in the story, and eventually even a better opportunity comes out, because this lady he helps leads one thing to another, and eventually, the story ends up in a good tune. So for the rest of the story, you might have to look for the book and read it. And so here we are with the questions from teacher Kaligo Njige. As I say, he's from Queen of Peace Girls Secondary School in Nzega District, Tabora region. And so, as you see, we're answering these questions. The book is of a lot of interest in Tanzania because of it being, a set book. So, if you, listener, might have further questions, just ask them in the comment section below, or you'll get my email address or WhatsApp number, which you can, send directly to me. The other question, we'll try and answer them in the future episodes of this program. And so let us start with the question by Mwalimu Dr. Njige. And the first question he asked is about the interview is it a direct or indirect title? Yes, he asks whether the title of the book, the interview, whether it's a direct or indirect title. And thinking about it, what is a direct title and what is indirect title? In some books, you get titles which explain straightforward what the story is about, so that by reading the title, you can get an idea of what the story is all about. That is a direct title. Some books, you may, just by reading the title, you may not really have an idea unless you take the book and read the blurb at the back or the introduction, then you can get a rough idea what the story is about. That is an indirect title. For the interview, at one instance, you can say it's a direct title, but it's also an indirect, because it's a direct title because this guy, our main character, is going for an interview. And so that's the title. He's going for the interview. He doesn't get the interview. So you can say it's a direct title. But again, the whole book, from the beginning to the end, he is meeting a lot of obstruction, a lot of restriction or challenges, which he has to navigate. And through navigation, he has to answer one or two questions. So you can say the story is full of interviews. Yeah, like for example, when he fails the interview, or rather when he fails to, when he decides to help the woman who has been knocked by the vehicle, and he gives her first aid, the police comes, and the police wants to know who witnessed the accident. And the rest of the crowd that do not want to be associated with it. But Joe comes out and answers a few questions, from the police and the ambulance people. So there's a kind of interview there. Secondly, when they discovered that the old lady, now the mother, has been found in the hospital, there's a kind of question and answer there. He wants to know more. The old man, Mr. Njogu, wants to know more about the whereabouts of the mother. And even when she is found, there's a bit of question there. So you can see there's also interview there. So the whole question is about life. The story of Joe throughout is full of question and answers, just as life in general. Life in general is a whole question and answer series. Even in your life is question and answer series. So there's a lot of questions being answered, or rather asked and answered. So the interview, the whole life of Joe and our lives in general is, we are going through an interview, and you can say it's an indirect title because of that fact. It's not just the one interview that's being met, but various interviews. So that's the first question. I've answered that question. I've answered that question by teacher Kaligo Jige. I've answered the first question. The second question is, discuss the setting of your novel. And so the main setting is a city, like Nairobi. The story is done, the setting is in Nairobi, Kenya. And you may not really come across names of estates or areas, but it's a city. And that's where, you have, matatus, you have people rushing to work and so on. There's a library, there's so on. But there are a bit of flashbacks where you can see some rural areas, particularly where Joe was born and while he was still young, and where they lived before they were forced to go to town due to what we know was, ethnic clashes from the areas they came from. Yeah, so the main setting is the city of Nairobi. There are big hospitals, ambulances, and so on. So he also asks a third question: discuss the style and techniques you employed in your novel. Yeah, he has view used, songs, narration, point of view, and dialogue. So I could say the main point of view, for example, is third person, because we are talking about Joe, what Joe is going through, and so on and so forth. But there's a bit of narration, there's a lot of narration, but also quite a bit of dialogue. And as you know, dialogue is very powerful sometimes when used correctly. Dialogue can give you suspense, can give you drama, can give you humor. And if it used nicely, if it's used in a nice way, it can be full of impact. And so the style I've used also, the suspense. And in fact, the way I believe I wrote the book, as I've written a lot of other works, there's humor and suspense. In fact, as you finish one chapter, it ends with a kind of suspense and leading you to the next chapter, so that when you finish reading one chapter, you don't want to put the book down, you want to go to the next chapter. So there's humor also, there's suspense, there's intrigue. The son of the old lady discovers that the old lady, now the mother, has been found in the hospital. There's a kind of question and answer there. I wants to know more. The old man, Mr. Njogu, wants to know more about the whereabouts of the mother. And even when she is found, there's a bit of question there. So you can see there's also interview there. So the whole question is about life. The story of Joe throughout is full of question and answers, just as life in general. Life in general is a whole question and answer series. Even in your life is question and answer series. So there's a lot of questions being answered, or rather asked and answered. So the interview, the whole life of Joe and our lives in general is, we are going through an interview, and you can say it's an indirect title because of that fact. It's not just the one interview that's being met, but various interviews. So that's the first question. I've answered that question. I've answered that question by teacher Kaligo Jige. I've answered the first question. The second question is, discuss the setting of your novel. And so the main setting is a city, like Nairobi. The story is done, the setting is in Nairobi, Kenya. And you may not really come across names of estates or areas, but it's a city. And that's where, you have, matatus, you have people rushing to work and so on. There's a library, there's so on. But there are a bit of flashbacks where you can see some rural areas, particularly where Joe was born and while he was still young, and where they lived before they were forced to go to town due to what we know was, ethnic clashes from the areas they came from. Yeah, so the main setting is the city of Nairobi. There are big hospitals, ambulances, and so on. So he also asks a third question, discuss the style and techniques you employed in your novel. Yeah, he has you used songs, narration, point of view, and dialogue. So I could say the main point of view, for example, is third person, because we are talking about Joe, what Joe is going through, and so on and so forth. But there's a bit of narration, there's a lot of narration, but also quite a bit of dialogue. And as you know, dialogue is very powerful sometimes when used correctly. Dialogue can give you suspense, can give you drama, can give you humor. And if it used nicely, if it's used in a nice way, it can be full of impact. And so the style I've used also, the suspense. And in fact, the way I believe I wrote the book, as I've written a lot of other works, there's humor and suspense. In fact, as you finish one chapter, it ends with a kind of suspense and leading you to the next chapter, so that when you finish reading one chapter, you don't want to put the book down. You want to go to the next chapter. So there's humor also, there's suspense, there's intrigue. And also I apply also man in the street lingua, so that you know, people talk the way they talk normally kwa barabara, you know, I mean, street talk. It's not, maybe this is what we are calling it, barbarism, but there's a lot of common man talk there, which is mixed with the language, which in mixed language, like we can find some Israeli words mixed up with English. That's how people talk normally, naturally, so that you feel comfortable that you are dealing with everyday characters. So, and song and dance, yes, as far as I remember, there's song and dance towards the end of the book when everybody, the huge family reunion has come together. Joe has found his family, and his sisters and brother are here meeting the Jogus, and now his big family is a celebration. And as you can see, okay, there is this reunion, and so there is song and dance there. I may not remember whether there was song and dance early on, but that particular part, there was song and dance during the reunion. And you can see how the men were stiff when the women were lululating and dancing and doing stuff, but the men were a bit stiff because, you know, they are men, and men are not supposed to show emotion. But then again, while they were forcing themselves not to be too excited, the tears could not be forced to stay inside, so they had to come out. And these are lessons that we have been brought up. Many men, many cultures, men have been brought up. They don't cry, and that could be one of the negative, what do you call it, traditional beliefs. Because if you have emotion, maybe you don't need to show it so much, but it's good to express emotion. Because when you hold so much emotion within it, hurt, anger, and so on, and you don't express it, one way or the other is going to come out, and it can come out negatively and hurt you. So we don't need to cry so much, but we need to show a bit of emotions. Maybe that's why the tears were struggling to come out, because somehow emotion has to come out. Yes, maybe I digress a bit, but that's my opinion. So we go to the fourth question. Discuss the plot of your novel. How many chapters your novel has? Is it chronological or flashback? I can say it is a blend, a combination of both chronological and flashbacks, because as the story starts, you can see Joe jumping from the bed. He's late, so we don't know why he's late in waking up. Maybe he didn't sleep, because we see a lot of insomnia in the book. Maybe he was too excited the previous night because he's going to the interview the next morning. So that excitement made him not sleep. And so he wakes up late, because when you don't sleep, when you take a long time to fall asleep, eventually when you fall asleep, normally you may end up oversleeping. Maybe that's what he did. I may not have said that in the novel, but he wakes up late that morning to go to the interview. And so there's that chronological story of him from the house to the vehicle. To get the vehicle. The woman is knocked, is taken to hospital, and so on and so forth, up to the end of the novel. You can see it's chronological, but there are flashbacks in between. Particularly when we are reminded of how, as young people, when they lost their parents in the clashes, ethnic clashes, that's a flashback. How they had to escape is a flashback. So it's a combination of flashback and chronological. And if I remember properly, the book is about 14 chapters. But since you may have the book in front of you, you can just flip and check how many chapters, but I think it's 14 chapters. And he says, discuss the characters you use in your novel. I may not discuss all the chapters, or rather the characters, but I can discuss the main characters. The main character is Joe. We have Joe. Joe, as we know, is is a Form 4 school leaver who is waiting to be, who is waiting to go to high school. And so he is a kind-hearted person, considerate, because he cannot leave this old lady stranded after being knocked by a vehicle. So he helps her to go to the hospital, and he can sacrifice his going to the interview in order to help this lady. And she's, she's helped. And he's quick, he's alert, he does things very fast, he's on the dot. Then we have the old lady, the grandmother, Shosho. Although she may have, in the story, she may have lost her mind, but she's a person who does not forget people who did her good. Like even after she's rescued or she's found by the son, she still remembers Joe, who helped her when she was in a bad situation. And so she kind of demands that that boy must come and be brought to her. And it ends up being that they're actually related. It's actually the bond, the love between the two, between the young boy and the grandmother. They just didn't know what attracted them, but actually is a blood relationship. So you can see she's also considerate, and she does not just forget the person who did well. Then we have Mr. Njogu, the Elephant Group of Companies CEO. He's a wealthy person and he's been away for some time. He comes back and he's a harsh person, but he's very considerate. Then we have the Njogu's brother, the uncle who was the interviewer at the interview, an arrogant person, and the kind of person who cherishes being in charge of things that he did not create. Like the company belongs to his brother, but he now behaves like he's the owner, being arrogant and issuing orders here and there. Generally that, I don't think I need to give a lot of other characters. As I said, I have not looked at the book soon, I mean of late, but because I did it almost 2 decades ago. But we have people like the girlfriend who are friends of Joe. So we have the girlfriend called Gladwell, and she's a singer. She's the one who kind of accompanies Joe through the trials and error. And so we also have Daniel Kongo. Daniel Kongo is the person I talked to you about, the cousin, he's actually cousin to Johnson Jogu. And Bernard Kongo was the father to Joe. And this guy, Kongo Daniel, is very strict in time, and he's the one who told off Joe for being late, and he's inconsiderate. He doesn't want to hear any reason for lateness, even if it is something that could be satisfactory. Then Johnson Jogu, he's a rich billionaire, industrial tycoon. He's the one who owns Elephant Group of Companies. And so they are others, but those are minor characters, but those are the major ones. And those are the one who plays a major role, including Joe's brother, who, helps him, educate him, and he helps him educate him. And he's only stranded when he comes to pay the school fees because the amount was so much, but he also helps Joe in getting a part-time job in the library. And so the two sisters who are away, who later joined in the celebration when the whole family gathers at the end of the book in the reunion. So I hope your questions have been answered there, and I will go to the next question. The next question is number 6, the language use. He says he would like me to describe or talk about the figure of speech imagery similar and metaphor, symbolism. Yes, sometimes it's difficult for an author to actually analyze his own works, particularly when you ask in such a short time. But I managed, and as I was writing this, I managed to include a lot of these. And as I said earlier in the book, in this commentary, is that when an author is writing, it comes out naturally. He does not decide, okay, in this paragraph, I'm going to do imagery. In this paragraph, I'm doing simile. I'm going to do metaphor. It comes naturally. It's only after you stand and look back, you notice these things. It's just like when you're going in a journey, or maybe walking in a rough journey or a rough path, and you meet various challenges. When you are going through those challenges, you may not kind of pause and look and imagine this challenge and analyze this challenge. You just go through the bits after you have gone to the other side. When you look back and say, actually, that's how I did that, that's how I did that, that's how I did that. And so the same with me. So what I've done is I've looked at I've gone to the internet and seen what one of the analysts of my book had done as far as the language is concerned. And what he said, I'll just go through a bit of them since you have asked, and talk about them, and you can refer, maybe take a note. So this guy says, will not be able to give you the name, but it's something on the internet. I'll put down on the description below. I'll put a link to what this analyst has said. And so as long as hyperbole is concerned, he said, he's quoting the hyperbole on page 7 of the book. He says, he had polished his shoes that he could almost use it as a mirror. Page 7. And I think this is when Joe was prepared to go for the interview. He really polished his shoes so that it could look like a mirror. Another idea of the hyperbole is the matatu were notorious for taking ages to appear. I just read a few of them, and that is on page 8. For simile, she's as fit as a pillow. She's as fit as a fiddle on page 38. Simile again, she hugged me like hell on page 45. Again, simile again, Joe's heart skidded, stopped, then went wild, beating like hell, page 83. Then we have a metaphor, which the analyst has given an example is, even science can be an art. In fact, it is an art, page 34. And so there, I'll put the link so that if you're interested, you can read further. But for personification, it gives an idea of his heart was racing vigorously on page 21. Then she smiled as his face registered in his mind, page 50. And then his heart raced madly, page 53. So I will put the link, as I said, so that you can read it yourself. And so on and so forth. I don't think I need to read all of them, but you will look at them when you read. In fact, it's a whole analysis of the book, so you'll be able to read that. I don't want to recreate the wheel when somebody has already done that. So question number 7 says, discuss the themes found in your novel. Three major themes is love, kindness, and sacrifice. Love, you can see through the book, the love between the brothers, Joe and his elder brother. Kindness towards the grandmother by Joe. And sacrifice, the fact that Joe sacrificed to go for the interview in order to save this old lady, and it all turned out positively for him. So those are the major themes that can be found in this book. Yeah, as far as I can imagine right now, although there may be others, maybe you can tell us, maybe read a viewer, if you can see another major theme, maybe you can just comment below. So question number 8, he asks, he has discussed the messages. Yeah, discuss the messages in the book. And the main message, in fact, that gave me the idea to write the book is the fact that you do something good to somebody, you do something good to society, you do something good to person, you're actually doing it to yourself. And there's an English saying that says, one good turn deserves another. You do something good to somebody, you get it back. What goes around comes around. Patience, the message is patience and resilience. Joe was patient throughout, although sometimes he was a bit impatient and frustrated by, the Jogus when they took the grandmother without his knowing. But that patience eventually brings fruit and blessings, as they say in Kiswahili, mvumilivu hula mbivu. And when you are patient and you do something good to other people, blessings come from unexpected areas, even when you are struggling in life. So generally, that is that. Message is one good turn, kindness. An act of kindness will not go unnoticed. You will always be paid back. And then the last question by Kaligo is, discuss conflict. And what I can say about conflict is that life is one big conflict. Every time you meet, breathing itself is a conflict because you have to struggle to take in air and take it out and so on. You should ask a sick person who is struggling to breathe. It's a conflict. Life is a conflict, and a good story would not be a good story if there's no conflict. It's the conflict that brings the story. For Joe, he can't get his certificate. That's a conflict. Despite completing his education, that's conflict. He can't get to the interview in time due to the accident. That's conflict. After discovering the lady, he's unable to send the message to Mr. Jogu. After discovering this lady is being sought by his family, he cannot get the message across to Mr. Jogu because Mr. Jogu thinks this guy is just like everybody else, wants the money. So that's a conflict. Yeah. Him after being late to the interview, and when he makes to the interview, he meets a hostile interviewer because this interviewer doesn't want to know why the guy was late. So that's conflict. The policewoman orders him into a police car after the ambulance is taken because she wants to take him to the police station to do the statement, but he wants to rush the interview. That's conflict. So without conflict, there is no story because life is conflict throughout. Life, as I said, is conflict. And without conflict, there's no life. What is the use of life? You get bored when there's no conflict. And I've gone through all the questions, and I'm excited because there's more interest since I did the last video with Mwalimu Bishoza. And I'm willing to do more if I can get enough questions from you. And I'm here to answer not all the questions, some of the questions, but then again, this program is not just for the interviews. As we go along, I'll be bringing more videos about my other works because I have done a lot of manuscripts, but published 9 of them. So as we go along, I may be mentioning others. And you may want to ask 1 or 2 questions here. I also do online training for those who may want to know about writing. And you can get more information by writing and sending me an email, or even commenting on the comment section below. Soon I'll also do a one-on-one interview. Interview again. I'll also do a one-on-one interview by one of the analysts in Tanzania, who requested me to do, he wants to ask me a few questions about the interview and other things. That will be the next episode. It will just be one-on-one interview. You're going to know which teacher is that. One of the teachers is also one of the analysts who have done the interview analysis on YouTube, and he's done so many others. I may not recall his name immediately, but it will soon be evident when we do the interview. When you do the interview here on this program. So in future, we'll also talk about book news, what's happening on the continent as far as literature is concerned, which competition is happening where on poetry and others, the news and so on. And it will be brought in this fashion. And I'll also be doing live shows on Facebook, on Write Academy Facebook page. So you can look for Write Academy Facebook page, whose link is also down here, so that you can be joining me whenever I do those live shows. So that's all for now, and hoping we get connected again soon when we do another episode of Right Talk. So thank you, and God bless, and all the best.
Everybody knows. Yeah, now I know.